Hi everyone, I'm Alyce Alexandra and welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be cooking my absolute favourite bread recipe. It's a cheap sourdough and it's from my new cookbook, Quick Fix Every Occasion. So this recipe is my favourite because it smells like a sourdough, it tastes like a sourdough, it looks like a sourdough, but it's not actually a sourdough. Sourdoughs are a lot of work and require sourdough starters. Now while that produces a beautiful loaf of bread, it's not really feasible for the average person to keep a starter in their fridge. So I'm going to show you how to get the same results without the work. So here we've got 340 grams of filtered water. Now, filtered warm water. The reason I'm using filtered water is that tap water contains chlorine, and this chlorine can actually inhibit the growth of the bacteria. And it's this bacteria that we want to cultivate in the dough that creates the pockets of air, which creates those beautiful bubbles you see in a sourdough. So I've also got here 440 grams of baker's flour. So just put that in also. Baker's flour is just available from the supermarket. It's a high protein flour, which gives a beautiful crust and a soft inside to your bread. It's sometimes called strong flour or 000 flour. Now, with the water and flour ratios, that gives a hydration of 75%, so it's a really wet dough. But this gives a beautiful rustic look to the bread and also enables the gas to form and form those beautiful bubbles. It's not a tightly packed sandwich loaf. So we also need salt for this recipe. We need 1.5 teaspoons. These are half teaspoons. And salt is really important when you're making bread, not just for the taste, but also for the texture and to regulate the yeast fermentation. So we've got our salt. The last ingredient is the cheap part, the yeast. We're going to use 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. Now, I know we're cheating because sourdoughs aren't meant to have yeast, but it really is a tiny amount compared to what you'd put in a conventional loaf. And that 1/4 teaspoon is just going to start the fermentation process. So what we're going to do is we just want to mix that for about 30 seconds on interval speed. We don't need to knead it. Wet doughs don't really need kneading. We just want to combine all the ingredients. So 30 seconds. Nearly there. And lock the lid when you're doing interval speed. And perfect. So that dough's been going for about 30 seconds kneading. That's all it needs for a wet dough like this one. Yeah. So that's looking perfect. With a wet dough, it's sometimes a bit hard to get out of the Thermomix, but with this tip, you'll never have a problem again. Turn the bowl upside down and just twist the blades. If they don't move, that means the dough is too wet. Just add a tablespoon of flour and knead again for a few seconds. But as we can see, that's coming out nicely. So there's still quite a bit on there. If we just put it back on the machine and turbo it for a second, that'll flick all the excess dough off the blades and make it really easy to get out. So with turboing, lock the lid and turbo speed. That's all it needs. And as you can see, all the dough's come off. We'll just get our trusty spatula, go round the bowl, and that is perfect. All the dough out of the bowl. So now, I'll just scrape up, even better. So we'll cover it with cling film and then puncture a few holes in it and then let it sit for 12 to 24 hours to ferment. So there we go. In a warm place with a constant temperature is ideal. So 12 to 24 hours, 12 for summer, 24 for winter is about the rule. A great place is in the laundry, on top of the hot water system, or on top of the fridge, because these are generally really warm places. Failing that, wrap it in a blanket and put a hot water bottle on it, and that'll do the trick. So here's the sourdough that I put on yesterday, and as you can see, it's doubled in size. And it's also created these beautiful little pockets of air, which is going to create that bubbly, really light sourdough that we all love. So that is ready to bake now, as you can see. I've preheated the oven to 250 degrees Celsius fan force. And the other thing I've done is just placed a tray of water just like this one in the bottom. I've put a cup of water in it, that's all you need. What you want to do there is create some steam in the oven, and it's this steam that will form the beautiful crust on the sourdough that we all love. So don't forget that step, it's very important. So now I'm going to shape the sourdough. What I've done is taken an oven tray and I've just lined it with baking paper. Now, the reason we don't use baking mats, as much as I love them, is at the oven at 250, it's just too hot for the mat. So we need to flour this really, really well, otherwise it will stick. We could use, I'm using baker's flour, but we could use semolina or corn flour, anything really. So just well flour it, make sure that you've got no bits opened. And now the fun part, getting the dough out of the bowl. A dough scraper like this one is really good for this, but of course you could just use a spatula or your hands. So I've oiled this bowl lightly so it will come out a bit easier. I'll just do it this way. So as you can see that those beautiful glutinous strands there, I'm just gonna help that off the sides. That's perfect. And just ease it onto the tray. The less we touch this, the better, because we want to preserve those little pockets of air. If you start playing with it too much, you'll disrupt them, and then you're going to get a really heavy sourdough, which is not what we want. So there's the dough all out. Now I'm just going to flour the edges, and I'm also going to flour my hands, and then the fun part, the shaping. So what we need to do is pull the edges over just to form it in a bit more of a tight ciabatta shape. So I'm just gonna grab the short edges first and just pull up and pull over, just like that. That's all you need to do. And as I said before, minimal touching. So we'll just grab this side again and do the same. Wonderful. And then the final two edges. So just flour your hands well so they don't stick to the dough, and just pull up and fold over. And the final one, we're just going to pull up and over. So, I might just stretch that a bit further. So that is your perfectly shaped sourdough. Now you can leave it and bake it like that, or you can roll it over to give a more uniform shape. I like the rustic look that leaving the seam on the top gives. So if there's any big chunks of flour, just brush them off. And the next trick at getting the perfect crust is spraying it with water. Just an average water sprayer, a few squirts, and that'll really help form the crust. So this is ready to go in the oven now. It doesn't need a second proof. It's ready to bake for about 30 to 40 minutes. The other thing is with the water in the oven, the crust is formed within the first 10 to 15 minutes. So after that time, you really don't want any more steam, or it's not going to preserve that beautiful crust. So what we'll do after 10 to 15 minutes is we'll just open the door, let the steam escape, and if that tray at the bottom's got any water in it, we'll just remove that, and then our sourdough is ready to go in the oven. Okay, so our sourdough has come out of the oven. It looks great, it smells delicious. I cannot wait to eat some. We've pulled it out and we've just put it on a wire rack for about 10 minutes to cool down. You don't want to slice bread when it's really hot. And as you can hear, it sounds hollow, and that means it's cooked all the way through. So what we'll do is we'll slice it now. I love this bread to put it on the day before and then shape it and bake it in the morning and have it with breakfast. There's no other bread that you could get coming out of the oven in 30 minutes that will taste this good. So let's slice it up. See, there you go. That is a beautiful looking sourdough. Yeah, you can see the air bubbles there. It's still nice and hot. Delicious. And that is sourdough made in the Thermomix.